Untie the Knots That Blind, Release Emotional Reactivity, and Wake Up to Reality by Lila Sunship. Introduction. I've been where you're hanging, and I think I see how you're pinned. Leonard Cohen. This book is about loosening the bond of reactivity. Reactivity can constantly bother the body-mind, like a mosquito that always comes back, no matter how many times you thought it was gone. At an extreme, reactivity can ruin lives in split seconds over the course of a lifetime, constantly encouraging bad decisions, destroying relationships. For those of us on the pathless path of awakening and liberation, reactivity is a fundamental obstacle, perhaps the most problematic and unpleasant to address. Liberation, enlightenment, is right here, right now, always. And yet there is much that prevents the clear seeing of this. The 10-fetter model from early Buddhism describes the various obstacles to complete liberation well. For those who have not permanently broken these fetters, there might be periods of pure presence, but they become obscured again by the various processes described by them. The first 3 fetters in the 10-fetter model describe a fundamental initial shift of identity. The dropping of these fetters is called awakening in some non-duality circles. Those who have broken these fetters no longer mistake thoughts, emotions, and perceptions for an inherent self, first fetter. The first fetter drops along with the second, doubt in the Dhamma, and third, holding on to rituals and practices thinking they will bring about enlightenment. Blind meditation without understanding why you are doing it falls into this category. The 4th and 5th fetters are desire and ill will, what can be broadly described as reactivity, and is what this book is mostly about. The first part of this book is a deep dive into what reactivity is at a fundamental level. Understanding what it is can help you loosen it. The second part describes the process of loosening and breaking reactivity, as well as exercises to help effectuate it. Who is this book for? This book is for anyone who wants to loosen the bond of reactivity, anyone who feels that reactivity has been a problem in their lives and wants to address it. This book would probably be most helpful for people who already had an awakening. This kind of shadow work is much more effective if the belief in a self has already dropped. When belief in self is still in place, the basis for reactivity is also still in place. With awakening, the basis is gone, so reactivity can shift out of the system much more easily, and there is potential to actually completely break it entirely. Even if you did not have an awakening, it is still valuable to prime the body-mind to understand reactivity at a deeper level. People who are used to feeling their own bodies, e.g., those who have done yoga, tai chi, various body-based meditations, etc., will have an advantage. Much of this work is somatic in nature. Disclaimer: I'm not fully liberated, but there has been much freedom here. I write because I want to write. It helps my understanding. I do not claim to have ultimate or even partial answers. All of this comes from my own experience. I try not to write about things I have not experienced. All models are wrong, but some are useful. I'm not a Buddhist, and I see no need to try to fit my experience to the 10-fetter model. But the fetters do seem to describe various blocks to complete liberation. My experience indicates that the 3 lower fetters have dropped for me. I do not mistake my thoughts, feelings, and perceptions with an inherent self. I cannot claim to have completely broken the bond of reactivity. I do, however, believe that this bond has loosened considerably. I regularly see reactions arise in my body-mind and suddenly fold on their own. The understanding and practices described in this book have helped me get on top of the morass that is reactivity, and I hope it will help you too. What is reactivity? I hate and I love. Who can tell me why? Catullus 85. You think of an argument you had yesterday. Feeling arises, fists clench, words you wish you said arise. The body-mind is pushed here, pulled there. You contract and contract more. What just happened? That was reactivity. When looking closely at that pushing and pulling, it's revealed that what feels like me having a reaction is really just sensations, thoughts, and emotions arising together, stuck together. There's no separate self experiencing the reaction. There is just the different textures of feeling and thinking, the body-mind. This is why this book often refers to what is reacting as the body-mind, rather than the self. It still uses the words self, I, and you colloquially. but using such words does suggest something with an inherent existence. The term body-mind emphasizes that what is typically referred to as an self is better understood to be a process of thinking, feeling, perceiving, etc. This shift of context is useful for the work of unbinding, to encourage the shifts of perception that lead to freedom. Buddhism describes 6 sense doors: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and cognizing. The senses can be activated in response to external or internal changes. Feeling is the felt sense of the body, such as the feeling of contraction that is part of reactivity. Cognizing refers to thinking, such as the thoughts that accompany reactivity. The problematic sense doors tend to be feeling and cognizing. How reactivity unfolds. When reactivity arises, feeling and thinking tend to get tangled with each other, proliferate with each other, ignite each other. The proliferation of thought that arises with the body's reaction can be just as painful. The words drive more contraction. It dialogues with itself, eggs itself on, and thinks what it has to say is very, very important. And then it gets even more complicated. More complicated emotions arise, guilt and shame arise. For having these thoughts, others must not know what I'm thinking. Why am I like this? To view it at the level of texture, not content, some activation comes up in the body-mind. Another activation comes up immediately and suppresses it. It feels like how the word sounds. It presses down on you. There is a vague or not so vague feeling of suffocation that then arises. Down that way is madness. This is a complex, tangled knot. The whole world is tangled. What a mess. One translation of Nibbana is no forest. Freedom comes from non-proliferation. Feeling arises and falls. Thinking arises and falls, cleanly without remainder, without proliferation. The fundamental mix-up. The term cargo culting refers to the imitation of superficial aspects of a phenomenon, without appreciating the context for why the phenomenon is the way it is. The term refers to religious movements that arose in the 20th century among some indigenous people in the South Pacific. People in these movements had witnessed foreign militaries bringing valuable cargo by air and sea and developed practices copying what they had observed. They built mock airstrips, control towers and radios from local materials, believing these actions would bring about the cargo as they had seen with military forces. They saw part of the story, but were not aware of the broader truth. The vast technological and economic systems behind that cargo. The body does something similar. Because of past conditioning, it often reacts inappropriately to situations, cargo culting reactions that might have served a purpose in a different time and place. Meanwhile, the body-mind is blinded to this very moment, and so the matrix reforms again. This mix-up is largely a function of projection and habit. Projection. I once bought a backpack that felt very uncomfortable when I wore it. I could not identify why it was so uncomfortable. At first I did not mind so much, didn't think it was that uncomfortable. But over time, as I continued to use it, I started hating that backpack. But it was just a backpack. The hatred was pure projection. What is hated is projected onto. The mind-body is what experiences the pain of it. Habit. In Pavlov's famous experiments with his dogs, a bell would ring, food would appear, and the dogs would salivate, again and again. Eventually, a bell rings, and the dogs salivate, no food to be found. Reactivity is often no different from this. Say a boundary was constantly violated in the past by an abusive person who was much more powerful than you. Maybe this was decades ago. Maybe at the time, only terrible words and thoughts brought up any semblance of power, temporarily alleviating the pain of the feelings of helplessness. Maybe decades later, a completely different person is loud, talking too much, but not meaning anything by it. Maybe you feel violated in a very similar way. All manner of ill will and hatred come up for no reason at all, simply as a reaction to the ghosts of the past. Why reactivity perpetuates. Habits, even habits that cause unpleasant feelings to arise, are comforting. If a body-mind has done something for a very long time, reacted in certain ways in certain situations, the entire system of the body-mind is set up to support it. There can be a sense of rightness and comfort that comes from this. Consider ruts in mud that form when wheels pass over them over and over. Another wheel passing over that same rut is more likely to fall into it. The patterns of the body-mind are much like this. So, as unpleasant as reactivity can be, part of the body-mind finds comfort in it. Sometimes, after many years, prisoners prefer to stay incarcerated. They become adapted to the environment of the prison. They become institutionalized, the social matrix, the social bind. These patterns often emerge from dynamics in the social matrix. Even the mere presence of others can reify a self to a body-mind, and thus all the snags and suffering that come from that. People relate to each other completely convinced of the reality of self and other, and thus we are all in complicity with each other to keep the illusion of a separate self going. Worse, people often relate to each other through position, rank, gain, loss, lesser and greater. The human in relationship suggests a self to be protected and or added to. It suggests a self that can get embarrassed with a loss of status, that might want to be more than the next person, who might be paranoid that he is less. In the 10-fetter model, this bind is the conceit of self, the 8th fetter. The 8th fetter includes 3 types of conceit. I am superior, I am inferior, and even I am equal, which is also a thought, an edifice that arises. Status is protective. Sometimes, extreme losses in popularity can lead to loss of family, employment, and even incarceration or worse. There are reasons why losses of status feel so existential, why the body reacts so violently, why the body might be so attuned to changes in the social weather, and how the self might shake out in it. All of this serves to keep the fetter of the conceit of self right where it is, corrupting perception, keeping the body-mind stuck in the matrix. Burn it all down. A child not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. A proverb. When a person feels rejected thoroughly, something else can emerge, boiling up from the depths of the body-mind. There is a sense of, if you won't connect to me, then I will destroy all your connections. There is smoldering anger and pain. Relief comes from inflicting it on others, projecting it onto society, getting pleasure out of inflicting that pain. A body-mind might become actively destructive, entangling itself further into a hell realm, where the exit gets more and more hidden, the deepest patterns. It's not about you. Do you remember the first time you reacted to something? Probably not. Reacting arises naturally, automatically, from beginningless time, from before birth. It arises from causes and conditions that you in your limited consciousness could not possibly understand. Sometimes a reaction comes through, and you truly have no idea where it came from, like a tide bringing back something that someone threw into the ocean 100 years ago. Deeper on this pathless path, it is seen that all of this unfolds on its own, that all is dependently originated, that the entire world is a function of habit. The same force that created the table in front of you, the tree outside, created your reactions, the deepest resistance. When the doors of perception are cleansed, things are seen as they are, infinite. William Blake. There's a pain in sitting in nothingness. As the mind sits in deeper and deeper stillness, stillness that it is not used to, it can react in unexpected ways. This is another kind of reactivity, beyond the coarse emotional habits of the 4th and 5th fetters. The body-mind can react violently at the face of its own disappearance. When thoughts, emotions, reactivity, and the engaging tableaus that arise from them when they are indulged in no longer arise, things start to get very, very light. Other deeper binds start to get pinged, like attachment to time and space. These are associated with the 6th and 7th fetters. All those can be loosened. Without the binds of self, reactivity, space and time, the sensation that arises can be that of disappearance. Something in the body-mind can really say no to complete boundarylessness. The body rebels. The thoughts rebel. Perhaps the body-mind equates it with death. As the emptiness goes deeper and all boundaries dissolve, there is an instinctual and immediate not wanting to go there. The mind plays tricks, distracts. The body contracts and makes itself uncomfortable. And yet there is a tantalizing possibility there, the peace that surpasses all understanding. Wherever you go, there you are, is a phrase that is popular in Alcoholics Anonymous. There is no escape, there is no exit, there is no there to go to. It is all right here, right now, infinite. How to let go of reactivity. Letting go of reactivity involves roughly 2 phases: developing clear seeing and insight. Developing clear seeing can happen by effort. I have provided some pointers and exercises to help with this. Insight happens by grace. Develop clear seeing. The entire pathless path is about clear seeing. Enlightenment is right here, right now, always. But if obscurations are not seen as obscurations, delusion and all the suffering delusion entails arises immediately. All-day mindfulness. Make it a practice to pay attention to what arises in the sense doors as much as possible during the day. You will likely be surprised at what you find. You are very often reacting even when you are oblivious to it. For example, it took me quite some time to realize that the thought "I'm hungry" would pass through my mind sometimes when an uncomfortable thought or feeling passes through my system. Reactivity work can get very subtle, and over time what is noticed gets much more subtle. Textures, not content. But what do you pay attention to? When doing this work, ignore content entirely. Your body might tense this up with shame. Maybe the shame can be traced to how your father made you feel you could not do anything right. It does not matter. What matters is the texture of contraction felt in the body, the pattern of thought that may accompany it. Staying at this level and not getting caught up in content is the way out of the matrix. Getting pulled into content is the way that the matrix reforms again. Watch the textures of the body-mind. Watch them sparkle here, undulate there, tense up there, tense up so much that it feels that the body-mind is getting twisted up. Watch emotion come up and pass with no context at all. Daniel Ingram said something like, watching the body-mind was much like learning how to listen to lungs as a physician. At first it was a blob of sound, each sound indistinguishable from the next. Eventually these clicks, these wheezes, took on meaning, and he was able to understand what was going on in there, understand what is healthy and what is pathological. Feel your feelings. There is little possibility of progress on this path if the body-mind is not willing to feel itself. It must feel its own feelings. As soon as there is a bit of discomfort, there is a tendency, even just the beginning of a tendency, to look elsewhere. Even the most minor of discomforts, like the turn of the head to the side a bit too far, can kick off this looking elsewhere, this splintering of attention, this flying off into la-la land. No matter what is happening in the body-mind, the attitude to be taken about it should be the same. Feel what you're feeling. The storm will pass. In Buddhism, this is related to what is called the gradual training. No matter what is happening, do not dissociate, do not go somewhere else or distract yourself. Endure. Accept these discomforts. Say a tightness comes up in the chest. Don't look elsewhere. Accept that this is it, that it may never be released. This might be all of life. Of course, all gets released. But the hurrying along, the splintering into la-la lands, this keeps the world tangled. That dissociation works at cross purposes with freedom. The body can learn to see itself better. It is not just the mind, the cognizing sense, that can see with its abstract representations. The body, the feeling sense, has its own way of seeing. Parts of the body can become more aware of other parts of the body. Reactivity is an arising, an arousal. It tends to be located in certain places, discordant with what is around it. A contraction of shame in the gut, for example, it can feel like what is surrounding the area of activation is dormant and has no sensitivity. In the internal family systems modality, these reactions might be considered exile parts. These parts can become more aware of themselves, broader bodily context that they are in, and vice versa. Some of the exercises at the end of this book can help improve the intelligence of the body, so that what gets activated, and the broader bodily context, immediately understands itself deeply, understands that it does not need to react. This is insight. What is insight? In regular everyday language, insight refers to deep, clear understanding of something. It often comes suddenly. There is an accumulation of data points, and then at some point the mind just gets it. In the context of awakening and liberation, insight is slightly more nuanced. The world is seen differently, along with a profound change in what is doing the seeing. Moreover, it has the flavor of subtracting. With first awakening, it felt like a 50-pound weight that I had been dragging around through lifetimes had dropped. It was a permanent shift. It felt like a structural shift. In the exercises in this book, reactions are worked on individually, but over time, with an accumulation of data points, a general intelligence emerges. Reactivity is automatically recognized as reactivity by itself, by whatever is reacting. Eventually, body-mind immediately drops the reaction upon that recognition. Get leverage on yourself. You are trying to overturn the conditioning of a lifetime with this work. The tendency is to keep going like you've been going. In order for there to be a change, it is important to try to get leverage on yourself. Carrots and sticks. The most primal motivations in a human being are to move away from discomfort and towards pleasure. The problem is that often the body-mind is deeply confused, mistaking pain for pleasure and vice versa, being content seeking superficial pleasures because it does not know any better, has been misled by circumstances to want what is not good for it. For example, sometimes being riled up and angry is more compelling than peace. There is something that feels powerful in that activation, provides a simulacra of power. Over time, this can become part of the conscious or not conscious value system of a body-mind, confusing it deeply. When being riled up is valued in equal measure with peace, this is like trying to make forward progress by taking one step forward and then one step backward. Peace should be clearly favored so that the body-mind has the leverage for insight. Imagine what life would be like without anger and resentment. Imagine what it would be like if the body-mind were always equanimous. This can be an inspiring thought that can encourage the body-mind to understand to not sacrifice long-term peace and stability for the short-term gain of indulging reactivity. If peace is not enough of a carrot, here is a stick. Think of yourself as tied to the bonds of reactivity like a puppet on strings. Think of yourself as constantly dancing to the disturbing tones of Pavlov's bell through no will of your own. Do you want to live your entire life this way? This is likely not a pleasant thought. The unpleasantness of this thought can be used to get leverage on yourself, to let go of reactivity, the social element. A lot of this work is like cutting through a jungle. You feel confused, occasionally not sure that you are making progress, what you are doing is at all effective, or if this awakening is the same as the awakenings of others. As the non-duality teacher Rustal said, it's hard to understand at all what you are going through when your reality is being rebuilt from the ground up. As mentioned previously, the vast majority of social interaction reinforces the assumption that you are a person living this life who goes from here to there, who is greater or lesser than others. This is a spell that you have been under, the spell reinforced every single day. In the social matrix, there is quite a lot of pressure to commit to a story about yourself and your life and who you are. Working one-on-one with someone who is awakened can help in the process of disentangling. It helps quite a bit to have someone else to witness and confirm your experiences, your shifts. To be more confident in them, know where to look, how to look, to understand what is happening. After all, reality was always reality. You were just conditioned into delusion by thousands of forces, loosens by effort, breaks by grace. Remember Pavlov's dog. Loosening reactivity means decoupling the trigger bell social tension, for example, from the original trauma food abuse, so you don't automatically respond with the old reaction salivation rage every time the trigger appears. The process can take a lot of vigilance and effort. Just like you do not know how many times to present the bell without the food before the dog stops salivating at the bell, you do not know when reactivity will break. This can be a source of frustration. When I was trying for awakening, I tried very, very hard. I meditated for multiple hours a day, read and listen to everything I can find on the subject. This is how I typically approached anything in my life that interested me. And yet, it did not happen for me. Not until I got sick, waking up every night with a violent hacking cough, not until the body-mind got completely fed up. Then it happened. The mind cannot pluck itself out of the matrix on its own. It happens by grace, encouraging grace. But there are ways to make yourself grace-prone. According to some forms of Buddhism, encouraging grace is all you really have to do, or even can do, to be free. For example, Pure Land Buddhism encourages people to say the name of Buddha, Amituofo, as much as possible. with the belief that the strength of the vow of the Amitabha Buddha will help you out, pull you out of the matrix. I have experienced the power of these kinds of requests. Though this is not my main practice, I would say it is worth a shot, if it is your inclination. The process. Note that this work is not particularly pleasant, and can make things feel worse before they get better. When deep patterns start unraveling, it's like removing something an octopus had been gripping onto for a long time. Suddenly all those tentacles are flailing around. Feelings such as sadness that have been long suppressed might arise. Ride through it. Everything should settle down eventually. If this instability extends for too long or gets too intense, do not hesitate to back off. Take it easy on yourself. Dreams. This process is often accompanied by dreams that indicate deeper release of the body-mind. If they are bizarre, that is likely a good sign. Complex traumas are almost by definition not cohesive, and the dreams will likely reflect that. I can usually recognize this kind of dream by the lighter feeling I have upon waking, which is discordant with the strange, negative content of the dream itself. Exercises. Introduction to exercises. These exercises are not based in any science. They are based on experience. They emerged more or less spontaneously for me, but in retrospect, I realize similar exercises can be found in the world of neuro-linguistic programming. See, for example, Tony Robbins' scrambling exercise, where a bad memory is returned to and scrambled so that the chain of activation that brought up the memory is not brought up in the same way again. NLP exercises typically have the goal of becoming a better self. These exercises are ultimately in the service of realizing no self. You can set aside time to sit down and do these exercises, or you can do them while you are going about your day, in situations where you find yourself reacting. The exercises involve bringing up triggering memories. Do not bring up anything too intense if you know it will destabilize you severely. The best memories to use for these exercises bring up only slight or moderate reactions. Separate the senses exercise. This exercise helps in the development of clear seeing. There are only really 6 sense modalities: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and cognizing. Reactivity tends to appear as a feeling that arises, along with some thoughts, perhaps an image in the mind's eye, perhaps some auditory fragments. If these don't proliferate, that is it. There is much to be gained by seeing this clearly over and over again. Since reactivity happens so quickly, this can often only be sensed in retrospect. How to do it? Gently bring up a memory you know you will react to. Feel the feeling. Take note of the complex of thoughts that may have arisen. Take note of any images that may have arisen. Take note of any auditory fragments that may have arisen. Note how all of these are separate. Try to delineate the boundaries of each, the feeling, the thoughts, the images, and any auditory fragments. Release all the activations, e.g., relax all the muscles involved in the reaction, let go of the thoughts involved. Repeat. Teach the body to recognize reactivity exercise. The twins, who are they? 2 beings, fascinated with each other. 2 beings each hell-bent on unraveling the other's mystery. Stephen Forrest, The Inner Sky, about the archetype of Gemini. Feelings in the body are very abstract. Like all abstract things, they have a tendency to be passed over in silence, even as they are affecting your life. This exercise helps the body itself to understand reactions in the feeling sense door better, by providing a foothold, an entry point for understanding. Much of learning, for both body and mind, involves contrast. It is much easier to understand something when having something to compare it to. This exercise encourages the body's reactions to understand themselves as they arise by creating a second twin reaction that the initial involuntary reaction can relate to and establish a connection with. After the relationship between the initial involuntary action and the twin reaction is activated, a connection to the area around the reaction is added. Then, a connection between all 3 is activated: the initial involuntary reaction, the twin artificial reaction, and the context around the initial reaction. After that, the entire body, as much of it that is under voluntary control, is activated, encouraging a connection between all and all. When you become comfortable with the entire exercise, consider setting an interval timer with a 1-minute interval to do the entire exercise and 1 minute for rest. Do 3 to 8 sets of these. This exercise in particular is not very pleasant to do. It tends to become pleasant on the second or third day after doing them, when a new clarity and openness is felt in the body-mind. How to do it? Twin reaction. Gently bring up a triggering memory. Feel the reaction that arises in your body. Now consciously, artificially bring up that same reaction physically, tensing up the same muscles in the same way. Bring the attention back to the now fading bodily memory of that reaction. Let it reactivate. Now move attention back to the artificial reaction, back and forth, back and forth. Add context. Do the above exercise up to step 4. After that, place the attention on the whole region where the activation, original and artificial, was, e.g., around 6 inches in each direction. Keep attention on that area until it is properly felt, activated. Now shift attention between that original activation, the artificial reactivation, and the neighborhood, the body context of the activation. Over and over again, at least 3 times. Change up direction and move through them randomly. Add everything. Do all the exercises above. Now contract every muscle of your body as much as possible. For 8 seconds. Rest 15 seconds. Repeat 1 or 2 times. Rest. Now rest completely. Relax the entire body. This is an essential part of this exercise. Stay with it exercise. One reason reactivity can stay the way it is without changing too much for years, decades, lifetimes is because certain sensitive areas of the body-mind are psychosomatically habitually avoided. This exercise can help shift this simply by taking a beat, letting the body-mind shift out of the pattern. How to do it? Gently bring up a memory your body will react to. At the height of the reaction, pause it by bringing awareness to the tension, the images, etc. that arose, and slowly count to 10. Feel and see the body-mind shift away from the pattern it was about to move through. It can feel like diffusion of the activation. It can feel like moving through another surprising groove. Repeat. Exercise to break up dissociation. Part of reactivity can be being stuck in a feeling. At an extreme, this can be a function of CPTSD. I heard someone describe CPTSD as fragmented, standing waves of dissociation, areas of frozenness scattered across the body-mind. It is a kind of trance. Trances also arise and fall, often unnoticed. Trances can be broken. This exercise affects the breaking up of these standing waves, this patterning by placing attention next to it. It is like placing a tuning fork with a slightly different tone near locked frequencies. The standing wave begins to wobble, destabilize and break up as the new frequency interacts with it. How to do it? Identify an area of frozenness in the body, for example, in the chest. Get a sense of the contours of these standing waves. Choose one such area. Put your attention not directly on it, but next to it. Feel what happens when you do that. The frozenness tends to feel like it is getting broken up. Feel what happens in the rest of the body as it happens. Repeat. See it as a not exercise. Reactivity is especially problematic when it is not like. Reactions arise, shame arises because of the reaction, thoughts arise saying don't be ashamed, that you're justified in the reaction, etc., etc. Meanwhile, the knot tightens and gets ever more hardened. This exercise can help loosen such patterns by seeing them clearly, by relating this tangled activation as it arises to a mental image of a knot. So you do not get lost in the knot, but see the knot as it is. How to do it? Wait for a reaction to arise, or bring up a memory you know you will react to. Watch the proliferation of thoughts and feelings that arise. In your mind's eye, briefly overlay an image of a knot onto your whole body, reflecting the particular ins and outs of this particular complex of reactions. Release the entire complex all at once, edgy, by relaxing all the muscles involved, releasing the thoughts, images that arose. Repeat. Conclusion. Reactivity loosens its grip gradually, then suddenly. I hope you came away from this book with a deeper understanding of reactivity and a clear path forward for releasing it, so that you can settle into the peace and freedom that is your birthright.